To wrap up today's episode of the MIRS Monday podcast, we are going to talk about buses and what they hope to see from state budget makers when the new fiscal year begins. I spoke with Heidi Wenzel, the director of the City of Ionia Dial-a-Ride that has been a rural transit operation since 2013. Heidi is the president of the Michigan Public Transit Association as well. Additionally, on the call with us is Harmony Lloyd, the vice president of planning and innovation for the Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transportation, or SMART, serving Metro Detroit as one of the state's largest transportation agencies. She is the Michigan Public Transit Association's board vice president as well. Here's my discussion with these ladies right now. Hello. Okay, I need to make sure I have your names correct. Heidi Wenzel, how are you? Did I do the name right?
That is, yes, I'm doing fine, thanks. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on the MIRS Monday podcast. And we are additionally joined by Harmony Lloyd. Hello, Harmony. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
Oh, well, glad to have you all. We're doing this recording on Friday morning. Happy Friday. How was your week, your post-Labor Day holiday week, everybody?
It felt like a long 4-day week, but good.
I agree, yeah, very busy, getting back into the swing of things, schools and everybody getting back into the swing of things. That's kinda feels like the wrap up and the start of a whole situation on both sides of it, so.
Absolutely heartbroken because I used to think that one of my favorite things about being an adult is that, summers could feel like they go longer. But then I kept on getting text messages and phone calls and conversations this past week that was like, "Oh, I hope you had a good summer."
Yes. It does feel like that, right? Even when we're out of school or our kids are out of school, it feels like we all still kind of subconsciously operate on that school calendar. Mhm.
I heard someone describe Labor Day weekend marks the cultural transition from summer to fall.
I think that's very true.
So let's get down to business. For today's current fiscal year, 246 million, that's million with an M, was assigned to Michigan's local bus operating LBO program, with 20 million of that coming from the federal COVID-19 recovery dollars. Now, just to confirm, these federal COVID bucks, or American Rescue Plan funds, if I'm being more formal, now just to confirm, that 20 million boost from the federal government won't be coming back, correct? And either of you can answer that.
That is correct.
So how big, if there is one, how big of a panic mode are you both in by both ARPA dollars not coming back and large changes in federal funding structures?
I'd say we're getting there to panic mode. I think that we all knew that ARPA money wasn't likely to come back. We were hopeful that there would be a roads funding package that would help fill that gap so that we at least didn't lose anything. But I think some of the numbers that we're seeing are pretty stressful.
I was just gonna say to add to that, I know there's a lot of rural systems, smaller systems that are in panic mode, and primarily because we have seen that, the funding levels just have not been there. We haven't seen any even kind of consistency with the funding levels. Unfortunately, we've seen those continuing to go down, and that in and of itself, it's putting a strain on everybody's budget. And looking forward, it's getting to that component where you have to start thinking about cuts, about changes. So I think, we definitely range from close to panic mode to getting closer to full blown panic mode.
Could you tell me a little bit about how your financial calendars work of when you have to have a budget ready for your individual operations?
I'm with SMART, and we are on a July 1 to June 30th fiscal year. So we just passed a few months ago our budget for the year that we're currently in. That's a little different than the state budget, which, as I'm sure you know, starts October 1. So the cuts that they're talking about now would really begin to affect us next fiscal year.
Did you have to make any cuts because of lack of ARPA dollars or because of the lack of a final budget deal on the state level?
We have not yet. We're waiting to see what happens, and then we would have to roll those in for the next fiscal year.
Which again would start on June 30th for SMART, correct?
July 1st, yeah.
July 1st. A curiosity I have, obviously road conditions and the call for more road funding has been a huge topic this year. Could you tell me how bad roads impact bus operations, expenses, and the lifespan of public transit vehicles, if they do at all?
Yeah, there's definitely an impact on it in terms of, our buses are on the same roads that the regular vehicles are on. And so having roads in good conditions is something that we support tremendously because it cuts down on our cost. It cuts down the wear and tear of the vehicles. If there's not consistent road construction, we're not putting extra mileage to go around those detours. So it's definitely something that we're supportive, but also a component of that is we are shared ride service. We are providing those carpools. So we are reducing the number of vehicles on the road by utilizing public transit and having those options and efficiencies of public transit for people to utilize.
I would say one thing that I found out when I started in transit, which seems so obvious now, a large bus cannot dodge a pothole, so they have to go directly over it. You ride in a bus and you're on some of these roads that are in really poor condition. You are bouncing up and down and you definitely feel it. The riders feel it and the bus certainly is taking the effect of that. So we fully support having good roads. We just want to make sure that the buses are part of the conversation.
Rather it be a rider experience, damage to one of these public transit vehicles, or just a pothole horror story, like you were kind of referencing Harmony. What is kind of some of your scary stories you all have seen in your line of public transit work?
It's mostly a flat tire or, something on the bus on the bottom popping off, because it hits a hole. I'm having a hard time thinking of a specific one. What I immediately thought of when you said it was that picture, I believe it was in Pennsylvania, of the bus that fell into a pothole and it was kind of the bottom half of it was sticking out, and we're just horrified and very happy that it didn't happen to one of ours. But those are the types of things you're just gonna, just like a car, you're gonna keep knocking things off, getting those flat tires, damaging parts to the bottom of the bus, and that takes the bus off the road and it makes it difficult and it causes riders to miss trips. So there's a huge effect for us too.
Now, the House's road funding plan brings LBO funding up to a 286.5 million, again a million for the M, which would be an all-time state funding high for the LBO. However, you all see there as being a catch to this because of a new comprehensive transportation fund created in the House's proposal. Can you all explain that a bit more for me? Either of you can.
So with that, the catch that you're speaking to is that they are tying that additional funding to fare box recovery. So they set metrics of a percentage of the fare box that has to cover your eligible expenses. So with that, there are some systems that are still fare free. There's systems, especially in the rural communities, that our fares are set to be able to accommodate and to help those members of our community that are in most need of the public transit. And so we're working to service elderly individuals, low income, disadvantaged individuals that don't have access to a car. So if we price them out of those fares, we're not going to be able to get them to where they need to be because they're not going to be able to ride the bus. So yes, we do see that fare box recovery as something that could be very limiting to some of the systems to be able to meet those metrics, to be able to obtain that additional funding that is greatly needed for our communities.
And just to piggyback on that, one of the issues or problems with having funding tied specifically only to fare boxes is it discounts the other local investments that are made in transit. Most of the communities in Michigan, Metro Detroit certainly, has a significant local investment that they put toward the transit system so that fares are able to be kept lower and people can use the bus system. So, for example, with SMART, our full budget is about $200 million a year. $100 million of that comes from Metro Detroit, from local residents, community that have invested in the bus system. So, to say that we would not qualify for state funding because we weren't covering the fare box recovery, just it doesn't make sense. It defies us and it punishes us when we're putting in 50% of our entire budget locally.
Could you just reiterate for me real quick, what does fare box mean?
So fare box is your passenger fare. So that kind of old school idea of you see somebody get on the bus and put that $2 into the fare box. That's exactly what fare box is. So fare box recovery is a metric that takes the entire operating budget and looks at how much you bring in for the through the fare box and divides it and comes up with a percentage. So I believe the House goal is, or the number that was mentioned was about 10% farebox recovery is what they want to see. Smarts is around 6%. So we would not qualify for the funding if they were to institute this. But like I said, 50% of our budget is covered by local costs. It's just not classified as farebox recovery. So if you were going to put in some sort of thing that said we want to make sure the local community is contributing in some way, then you really need to look at all of the ways that fares are paid, not just that at the fare box kind of traditional idea.
What do you think was the House's intention by having this fare box recovery of 10%?
I think it was good and well intentioned. I think that they were looking at it as a way to say, are these systems efficient? Are they running efficiently? And so we understand that. And, we don't have an issue with metrics. It's a huge part of what we do. But we think that it would be helpful for them to talk with transit agencies and better understand all the different revenue streams before they just put on an arbitrary number.
What do you think that Farebox metrics deliver? Is it to show how many people are actually utilizing that ride service? How many people are actually coming on and paying that fare? Do you think that's why they were trying to get at what they were trying to get at?
My assumption is that, as Harmony was mentioning, I think they were trying to get at an efficiency concept of, are the systems utilizing and able to put in that local contribution? But because if they're looking at just efficiencies of our numbers, we provide all of those as well. Those are all part of the metrics that we have to provide already for different reporting, whether it's state or federal reporting, about the number of individuals we service, the types of individuals that we service in terms of seniors or individuals that have additional needs. And then also we even capture trip purposes for a lot of our trips. So there's those metrics in terms of looking at passenger efficiency. With the fare box recovery, I really do think it's a matter of looking at whether the agencies are have some skin in the game. And as Harmony mentioned, it's not just fare box. There are so many different sources of local revenue, and we are required to make that local revenue match of anything that's not covered by state and federal. So it does need to be a comprehensive look at what the local contribution is of each of these agencies, not just fare box recovery.
There are folks in the Senate Democratic caucus right now who want a future road funding plan to come with Public Act 51 formula reform, essentially to keep more cash in busy Southeast Michigan roads. Are you all, as public transit advocates, are you nervous about getting screwed out of your share of the Public Act 51 formula if legislators attempt to change the allocation in the final hours of September?
We absolutely want to keep any road funding package to go through the current formula and make sure that as roads are supported, that transit gets its share of those dollars that are as it's written, which is about 10% of the road funding would go through Act 51 so that we could, through the full formula, they call it, but we want to see that. It's critical to us.
When I think of my personal life, I don't hear a lot of desire or need to use a bus based transportation. I have a few devout public transit people in my life personally, but I hear a lot of people who see bus services as unavailable or unreliable to them, or they have limited their idea of public transit to the image of trains and subways that are located out of state and don't think of tapping into the bus services that are here in Michigan. A curiosity that I have for you all is what is the path to putting more people onto buses? Or do I dare say the path toward romanticizing buses in the state of Michigan?
Well, the key is to make the transit system easy to use. That's when people use it and can use it to the level where they don't need a car or don't have to have a car or only one car in the household. And so to do that, it means having a comprehensive system that covers a lot of territory and that is frequent and reliable. And that's what we all have been working towards. We know how to do these things, but to do all of them takes money. So you can't underfund a transit system and then complain that there's not enough service to use that transit system, right? It defies common sense. And so if we want, and I'm in Metro Detroit, anytime somebody hears that I work at SMART, they say, oh, Metro Detroit doesn't have a transit system. Well, that's completely inaccurate. Just in at SMART, which is the Metro Detroit communities, we have about 33,000 rides a day. So there are a lot of people using our transit system, and they certainly would take it more, and other people would be able to use it if we were able to offer more service.
And another aspect of that too is sometimes it just takes the opportunity to jump on the bus and try it. Right? You say that they don't think about utilizing it or the concept isn't even there. We have individuals in our community and we're a rural transit system. I have one gal who has been taking our transportation to work because her daughter hasn't gotten a car yet. And so her daughter takes the car to school because it's just more convenient. She has more trips to make between sports and stuff like that. So she uses our transportation to get to work, and she has said, "I can't believe how easy this is. It makes so much sense for us." Other individuals that, whether it be they have an aging family member that still needs to make it to medical appointments, but they're still working, they'll give us a call and set something up. And again, I can't believe how easy and cheap this is. I've been taking days off of work and burning full days to be able to get mom or dad to a single appointment. And now we just call and you guys take them and it's so efficient. So a lot of it too really comes down to give us a try.
Everyone can get anywhere they need to go, and it is not dependent on whether they have a car or not. That's my dream, is that people have that freedom of movement, and it's not tied to them being able to own an automobile.
How involved have your services been in the Senate's road funding conversation? Do you all feel like you have a seat at the table amid this big road funding debate happening in Lansing currently?
I think we have worked really well with legislators. I think the Michigan Public Transit Association, which I'm representing today, has been very active in conversations, having, talking and meeting with individual legislators. And then in our respective communities, I think transit agencies have really worked to educate legislators on transit and what it means in their specific communities. I think people often have an idea of just that big bus going down the road. So if they live in a more rural area, they sometimes think that it doesn't apply to them. But when Heidi's able to talk to her legislators and explain that smaller bus that comes to the house and takes somebody to their doctor's appointment, it's eye-opening to them. So I think we found, once people understand transit and how it plays with roads and the people that they serve, that we get a pretty good response, and so that keeps us hopeful.
What happens to bus services during a government shutdown if one takes place at the end of this month?
We keep running. Nothing happens in terms of our operations. We continue to serve our communities. We continue to operate as we normally would. Obviously, there would be, if it was a prolonged shutdown, we do face the potential of not getting that state funding allocated out to us in a timely manner. But that's something that, we kind of look forward and plan for in our, but not necessarily in our budget, but looking forward right now, we plan for that potential of not having that revenue so we can make moves accordingly to that. But our service continues to run.
I guess my final question is do you all have any additional comments, or is there anything else that you would want listeners to know about your services and your aspirations now that we're in the final moments of budget making season here in Michigan?
For me personally, it would just be to whether individuals recognize it or not, there is public transit in every county in this state. And it is something that is needed by many individuals in every county in this state. And to take into consideration and recognize that that is an important part of continuing to ensure that our economy keeps moving forward, that people are able to continually be independent and be productive members of our economy and get the health and wellness needs met that they have. And it's not just for older populations, it's for everybody from young to old and in all walks of life. Public transit is something that is important in every community.
And I will just follow that up by offering a specific number. We really need to see $270 million at a minimum to keep the services that we had last year to, in effect, be held harmless and be able to provide the same service that we have been. So if people are looking for a specific number to support, we would love to see the house investment with the road funding, but at a minimum, we need to see 270 million put into local bus operating, our bus system funding.
What happens if you don't get 270 million?
That's when we start making cuts. And we would make cuts to hours of service, to routes. That's when you would start to see the effect of that hit real people.
Now, but you wouldn't see that until July 1st of next year, correct? Because of the way your budget cycles work?
Yes, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, so we would begin if the budget was to pass and we saw a significant cut, we would begin to make those arrangements immediately. We would see that financial piece come in July. And that's specifically for SMART. It would be different for other agencies that all have different ways and times of doing their budget.
Heidi, what's your budget cycle, if you don't mind me asking?
So uniquely enough, it is similar to SMART. We are a city department, and so our city budget is July 1st to June 30, and then the state budget is our opposite. So we do have those two different components, those two different timelines, but we have already, as agencies, submitted our fiscal year 26 applications for funding to the state of Michigan for our services. So at this point, we have already budgeted out for that fiscal year 26. So now it's just a matter of we wait and see whether we're able to meet those budgets or if we have to make those budget cuts.
Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time and insights. Everybody, that is Heidi Wenzel. She is the director of the City of Ionia Dial-a-Ride, as well as the current president of the Michigan Public Transit Association. As well, we were joined by Harmony Lloyd, the vice president of planning and innovation for the Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transportation, or SMART, in Metro Detroit. She is additionally the current vice president of the MPTA's board. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your Friday to talk to me on the MIRS Monday podcast. I greatly appreciate your time and insights.
Thanks.
Happy to be here. Thank you.